Mauryan age. Timeline of important Mauryan rule and the Chandragupta Maurya 321 to 297 BC, Bindusar 297 to 272 BC, Asoka 272 to 273 BC. Mauryan age. The last of the Nanda rulers, then Dhananand, was the highly unpopular due to the oppressive tax regime. Also, post Alexander invasion of the northwestern India, that region faced a lot of the unrest from foreigner powers. Chandragupta, with the help of intelligent and political statues Brahmin Kautilya, uh, us- usurped the throne by the defeating the Dhananand in 321 BC. Chandragupta. The Chandragupta liberated northwestern India from the Seleucus Nicator, who ruled area west of the India. He entered into the treaty with the Seleucus Nicator, in which Chandragupta acquired the Baluchistan, eastern Afghanistan, and the region to the west of Indus. In the return, the Seleucus Nicator got the 50-100 elephant. Chandragupta thus built up a vaster empire covering the whole of the subcontinent. Asoka. He is the greatest of the Mauryan ruler. According to the Buddhist tradition, he killed the 99 brothers to get the throne. Bindusar, son of the Chandragupta, also called the Amrita Bhakta, sailor of the face, or the Amrita Chates in the Greek, the sources. Damianchus was the Greek ambassador at his court. He had the appointed his son Asoka as the governor of Ujjain. The Bindusar is believed to have the extent of the Mauryan Empire to the Mysore as well. Asoka inscription. The inscription is the base of the reconstructed history of the Asoka, which are the classified into the major rocks edicts, minor rock edicts, the separate rock edicts, major pillar edicts, and the minor pillar edicts. And these inscriptions are the found in the India, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan. In these inscriptions, Asoka referred to himself as a Dev Nam Priya or Priyadarshi, which means the dear to God. The name of the Asoka occurs only the copies of the minor rock edict first found at the three places in Karnataka at one in Madhya Pradesh. They appeared in the Arabic language and the Kharosthi script in northwestern part of the subcontinent. In Afghanistan, they were written both Arabic and the Greek script and language. Impact of the Kalinga War. Bindusar. The Kalinga War was one of the major wars fought by the Asoka. Loss caused during the war caused Asoka much grief to the remorse, or so he abandoned the policy of physical conquest with the cultural conquest. Example, Bheri Ghosh was replaced by the Dhamme Ghosh. Asoka converted to Buddhism and the missionaries were sent to Sri Lanka, Burma and other countries to promote Buddhism. The significance of the Mauryan rule. First, the state control. The Kautilya advised the king to promulgate the Dhamma then the social order based on the Varna and the Asramas, the stages in life, the collapses. He calls the king Dharma Paravartana or the promulgator of the social order. Asoka promulgated the Dharma and appointed officials to the inculcate and the enforce the essential throughout the India. The administrative mechanism was the backed by the elaborate system of the mm, appendages varies type of the species. The collector intelligence about the foreign enemies and kept in eyes on the numerous officers. The important functionaries were called the Tritha. He appears that most functionaries were paid in the cash and highest among who were ministers, mantris, high priest, purohits, commander-in-chiefs, Senapati and crown princess Yuvaraja and were paid the generously. Second, economic regulation. The state appointment 27 superintendent Adhyaksha princely to the regulate its the economic activities, the controlled and the regulated agriculture, trade and the commerce, weights, measurement, crafts and such weights and spinning, mining and the like. The state also provides the irrigation facilities and regulated water supply for the benefit of agriculture. Architecture. According to the Arthashastra of Kautilya, a striking social development of the Mauryan period was the employment of the slaves in agriculture operation. Royal control was the exercise over a very large area, at least in the core of the empire. The Ashokan inscription appear on important highways. The stone pillar were the made in the Chunar near the Varanasi. From they corresponded the north to south India. The Patliputra was the chief center of the royal power, but the Tosali, Suronagiri and Ujjain Taxila were seat of the provincial power. Each of them was governed by the governor called the Kumara or princess, and they thus every governor hailed from the royal family. The Mauryan period constitute a landmark in the system of the taxation in ancient India, and Kautilya names many taxes which were collected from the peasant, artisan and traders. This required a strong and efficient machinery for the assessment, collection, and storage. The Mauryan attached greater importance of the assessment than the storage and depicts the Samastra was the highest officer of the change and assessment and the collection, and the Sanidhatta was the chief custodian of the state treasury and the storehouse. The assessors come the collector was the for the important than the chief of treasure. It seems that the punch-marked silver coin which carry the symbols of the peacock and crescented hill from the imperial currency of the Mauryas. Third, the art and architecture. The fragments of the stone pillar and the stamps indicating that existence of an 84th pillared hall have been discovered at the Kumhara on the outskirts of modern Patna, which pillar is made the single piece of the uh, buff colored stone, sandstone. Only there the capitals, which are the beautiful pieces of the sculpture in the form of the lion or the bulls, are the joint to the pillar on the top. The erection of the polished pillar throughout India shown the spread of the technical knowledge involved in the art and polishing them. The earliest example of the Barabar caps at the distance of the 30 km from Gaya. In the central phase of the northern black polished war around the 300 BC, the central Gangetic plain became the center of the terracotta art. The stone statue of the Yakshini in the form of beautiful woman found in the Didarganj Patna is noted for its Mauryan polish for the aspect of the material culture. This period evidences soaked excess horse and the spades, sickles, and the plowshares. Besides, these are the iron implements. The spoked wheel also the began to the used. In the end of the Mauryan period, burnt bricks were the used from the first time in northwestern India. Mauryan construction made to burnt bricks have been the found in the Bihar and UP. Ring walls, which were the first constructed under the Mauryan in the Gangetic plain, spread beyond the head of the empire. The art of the making steel may have been spread through the Mauryan contacts across the some part of the India. Steel objects relating to the 200 BC or the earlier that have been found in the mid Gangetic plains. The spared of the steel may have led to the jungle clearness and the use of the better method of the cultivation Kalinga and could have been created a condition for the rise of the Cheti and kingdom is that reason. Source of the Mauryan age. First, the Buddhist text Jataka, Divya, Divya Dandana and Asoka Vandana. फिर श्रीलंकन टेक्स्ट द महावंसा एंड द विपमवंसा द पुराणास द कौटिल्याज अर्थशास्त्र पॉलिटिको इकोनॉमिक और स्टेट क्राफ्ट्स द इंडिका मेगास्थनीज Visakha Datta Mudra Rakshas, according to the how Nandas overthrown by the Chandragupta Maurya in the Sanskrit. The Somadeva Katha Sarita Sagra, the Chemadra Brihandratha Manjari and the Kalhans Raj Tarangani. The Asoka inscription and the edicts. Causes of the fall on the Mauryan Empire. Brahminical reaction. The tolerance policy of the Asoka developed some kind of the anticipatory because the animals and the birds sacrifices and the how derived the superfluous rituals and performed affected the income of the Brahmanas. The new kingdoms like the Sungas, Kanwas, etc. ruled by the Brahmans across the ruined the empire. The financial crisis, the numerous expenditure on the army and payment of the bureaucracy created a financial crisis for the empire. The oppressive rule in the pro- provinces was the important cause for the break of the empire. A speed of the new material kingdoms in the outlying areas. The Mauryan rule owned in the expression to the certain basic materials advantage of these causes rise in the new kingdom like the Sunga, Kanwa, Chetis and Satohanas. The neglected the northwest frontier, the Greek wall in the China. The Mauryan ruled could not pay attention to the passage on the northwest frontier. This is the only reason Savathians made the push towards the India. They faced the Parthians and Sakas faced the Parthians and Sakas, the Greek to move towards India. The Chinese rulers, seeing Hun's Ti 247 to 210 BC, constructed wall, the Great Wall of the China to shield the empire from the allied attack, especially from Scythians. the Central Asian contact and their rules. The Indo-Greeks. The, the series of invasion took place from about the 200 BC. The first to cross the Hindu coast were the Greeks who ruled the Bactria lying south of the Oxus River in the area covered by the North Afghanistan. Causes of invasion. Weakness of the Seleucid Empire, which had been established in Bactria and the adjoining area of Iran and called Parthian. Due to the growing presence from the Scythian tribes, the later Greek rulers were unable to hold the power in this area. The construction of the Chinese wall prevented the Scythians from entering China, so there the attention turned towards the Greek and Parthian, pushed by the Scythian tribes and the Bactrian Greek were the forced to invade India. The successor of Ashoka were too weak throughout the attack. In the beginning of the 2nd century BCE, the Indo-Greek Bactrian Greek were the first to invade India. They occupied the large part of northwestern India, much larger than that the conquered by the Alexander. It is believed that they pushed forward to as far Ayodhya and Patliputra. However, the Greeks failed to establish a united rule in India. The two Greek dynasties ruled northwestern India and the parallel lines at the same time. The Indo-Bactrian rules is the important in the history of India because the large number of the coin ruled by the Greek king. The Indo-Greeks were the first rule in India to issue the coin, which can be definitely attributed to the king. It is rather interesting to the note that out of the 42 Indo-Greek kings, as many as 34 as the king only threw there the coin. The determinants of the king of Bactria. The invaded India around the 190 BC and the probably also come into the conflict with the Pushmitra Sung and found the Sung dynasty. The conquered a large part of northwestern India and also extended Bactrian rule to the south of the Hindu Kush. Mihanda and Mihendra 165 BC to 145 BCE, the most celebrated Indo-Greek ruler who stabilized Indo-Greek power and also extended his empires. The frontiers in India also included southern Afghanistan and Gandhar, the region west of the Indus River. They had his capital at the Sakar, modern Sialkot and Punjab, Pakistan. It is believed that he invaded Ganga Yamuna Dwap but had failed to return it for long. He was converted to Buddhism by the Nagsena, and also known as the Naga Arjuna. The Meandra have been identified with the king of Milinda mentioned in the famous Buddhist text Milinda Pano, Question of the Milinda, which contained the philosophical question that the Milinda asked the Naga Sena. The text claimed that the impression by the answer and the king accepted Buddhism as his religion. He is also identified with the king Mihendra mentioned in the fragmented Kharosthi inscription found on a casket at the Banjul, presently in Pakistan, which refers to the enshrining of the release of the Buddha and probably in the stupa during his regime. Um, Herminus. He was the last ruler of this dynasty, and he defeated by the Parthian around the last quarter of the second century BCE, which led to the end of the Greek rule in the Bactrian and area of the south of the Hindu Kush. However, the Indo-Greek rules contained in the northwestern India and some or more time. The northwestern Gandhara region was the also lost Parthian and Sakas in due to course of the time. Later in the late 1st century BCE or the early 1st century CE, the remaining the part of the treaty example, the area of the east and the Jhelum also cede to the Kshatrapa and ruler Rajuvala. Impact of the Indo-Greeks rule. The Indo-Greeks were the first rulers in India to issue coin, gold, silver, copper, nickel. The coin of the Sakas, Parthian and Kshatrapas followed the basic feature of the Indo-Greek coinage including um, Bilindugula and the by script legend. This coin provided important to information about the religious sects, the cults of the era, especially Seva and the Bhagavata sect. The Indo-Greeks introduced the Gandhara art in the northwest frontier of the India, which was the outcome of the interestingly and the influence of both India and Central Asia contract. The Indo-Greek also introduced the practice of the military governorship of the governors were called the Estates and Stamp. The Hellenistic Greeks were also known as their matrimonial building and the fully crafted object. Expansion of the cities revealed a great talent in the urban planning. Sakas या Scythians. Sakas in the Indian term for the people called the Scythians who originally belonged to Central Asia. There were five branches of Sakas which they are the seat of the power different part of India and Afghanistan. One branch of Sakas settled in Afghanistan. Prominent ruler of the branch were the Vanaros and the Espalinaresis. The second branch settled in Punjab with Taxila and their capital. The Moses was the prominent ruler. The third branch settled in Mathura where they ruled from about 2 centuries. Agilesses was the prominent ruler. The fourth branch is established in the whole cover eastern India, where they continued the rule till the 4th century CE. They ruled that the maximum period warning the flourishing economic based on the sea a bond trade in the Gujarat and also issued a large number of silver coin. One of the famous Sakas ruler was the Rudra Daman I CE 130 to 150. The ruled over the Sindh, Kutch, Gujarat also recovered from the Satavahanas, Konkan, the Narmada Valley, Malwa and Kathiawar. He is the famous in the history because of the repair he undertook to improve the Sudarshan Lake in the semi-arid zone of the Kathiawara. He was the great lover of the Sanskrit and issued the first ever long inscription chat the Sanskrit. All the earlier longer inscriptions were the composed in the Prakrit. The fifth branches of the Sakas established in the power in the upper Deccan. The Sakas did not meet effective resistance from the rulers and the masses of the India. The king of Ujjain around the 58 BCE effectively fought the succeed in the throwing the Sakas out. He called himself at Vikramaditya, and an era called the Vikram Samvat is reckoned from the event of his victory over the Sakas in 58 BCE. From this time onward, the Vikramaditya became the co- coveted title, and the whoever the achieved the anything great or adopt this title is the Roman emperors adopted the title of as Caesar in the order of the emphasize there the great power. Parthians. In the mid the first century CE, the Saka's domination in the northwest India was followed by that the Parthians. The in many ancient Sanskrit texts, they are the mentioned together as the Sakas Pahalwas. The originally in Parthians lived in Iran from where they moved to India, and in the comparison with the Greeks and the Sakas they occupied a small portion of northwest India in the first century. The most famous Parthian king was the Gonda Panhard, the mentioned in the inscription dated 45 BC found at the Takhte Baki, recovered from the murder near the Peshawar, in whose the reason Saint Thomas come to India the propagate the Christianity. In due to the course of time, the Parthians like the Sakas become the assimilated into the Indian society and become the integral part of it. The Kusanas ultimately outsided the successor of Gonda Parthians from the northwest India. Kusanas. The Parthians were allowed by the Kusana, who were also called Yunchu Moon tribes or the Tocharins. The Kusanas were one of the five clans into which the Yunchus tribe were divided. They were the nomadic tribe people who were the originally from the steppes of North Central Asia and neighborhood of the China. They first occupied Bactria or North Afghanistan, where they displaced the Sakas and gradually moved to Kabul Valley and seized the Gandhara by crossing the Hind Kush, replacing the rule of the Greeks and Parthians in the area. Finally, they set up their authority over the lower Indus basin in the greater part of the Gangetic basin. Their empire extended from the Oxus to the Ganga, from Khorasan to Central Asia, Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. A good part of Central Asia is portion of the Iran portion of Afghanistan and holds the Pakistan, and almost the whole of the North India were brought under the one rule by the Kusans. The Kusans dynasty was founded by house of the chief called the Kadphises. Kujala Kadphises first, uh, 15 CE to 64 CE. He laid the foundation of the unfitted Kusana Empire and amalgamation the five clans of the Yuchit tribes. He maintained the coins in copper and the believed to have the imitated the Roman ruby types coins the facilitate trade. His coin have been the found south of the Hindu Kush. His coin give an idea about his association with Buddhism. He adopted the epithet Dharmathidatta, and the such dharma. Dharmatadhita. The Vikram Kadphises II, 64 CE to 78 CE. He was the son of the Kadphises I. He conquered the Gandhar from the Parthians and extended the kingdom to the east of the Indus till the Mathura region. He issued a large number of gold coins. He was the firm devotee of the Lord Shiva and proclaimed him as the Mahashivara on his coin. His Vara on his coin. Kanishka 78 CE to 105 CE. He is the most famous Kusan ruler. During his reign, the kingdom extended from Central Asia to Afghanistan, from northwestern India to northern east into the Ganga Valley, and also southwards into the Malwa region. The empire also included Varanasi, Kausambi, the Saravasti in Uttar Pradesh, and the Sachi in Madhya Pradesh. The centers of this huge empire was the Bactria, as the evidence in this use of the Bactrian language in the Kanishka's coin and the inscription. The valuable information about the Kanishka is provided by the famous Rabatak inscription Afghanistan. The adopted the title of Dev Putra, and the some coin has been shown in the wearing the peacocked helmet. Pic- Picked helmet. His empire had two capitals. First one was the Purus, Porospur Peshawar, and where the Kanishka erected a monastery and the huge stupa to house and Buddha's resides. His second one was at the Mathura in India. Kanishka is the famous for the two reasons. First, he started era in 78 CE, which is now known as the Saka's era and used by the government of India for its calendar. Secondly, Kanishka extended his whole-hearted patronage of to Buddhism. He also converted into the fourth Buddhist council, discussed matter relating to the Buddhist technology and doctrine. It held at the Kundhalwana monastery near the Sri Nagar, Kashmir. Under this presidency of the Vanusmitra, he was in this the council that Buddhism was split into the two schools, the Hinayana and the Mahayana. The Kanishka patronized the Buddhist scholar of the era like the Vasumitra authored Mahivibhasa, the Ashwaghosa. Ashwaghosa wrote the hagiography, hagiographic of the Buddha Charitra. Charka, the father of the Ayurveda. Naga Arjun, the great advocate of the Mahayana doctrine and propounded the Madhyamayala, which is the focuses on the impetuousness or the Sunyata. Kanishka embraced Buddhism in the early part of his reign. However, his coin exhibit the image of not only Buddha but also the Greek and Hindu goddess. It reflects the Kanishka's tolerance towards other religions. The Kanishka also patronized the Gandhara and the Mathura school of the sculpture. At Mathura, he handles a statue of the Kanishka depicting him as the warrior he has been found. Vasudeva, the last Kusana empire. The successor of the Kanishka were the Vasishka, the Hivishka and Kanishka II, who adopted the title of the Kaisar, and the Vasudeva, the last important Kusan ruler. The Kusan Empire was the very much reduced in his rule. Around the mid second century, he took the title of Sahanao Saho Vasudev Kosavano, which reflects that by this time of the Kusana were totally Indi- Indianized. The Kusana power gradually declined from the early 3rd century CE. The Kusana Empire in this Afghanistan and era west of the Indus were supplemented by the secession power of Iran in this mid 3rd century E. But the Kusana principalities continued to exist in India for about the century. Some the remnants of the Kusana linguists on the Kabul Valley, Kapisa, Bacteria, Khorzam, and the Sogdian, identical with the Bukhara and the Samarkand in the 3rd 4th century E. The impact of the Central Asian contexts. The Central Asia influenced the field the almost all sphere of the social life. First, the poetry and the architecture. The typically poetry of this age, the Sakas Kusana was the red war and both the plain and the polish from with the medium of the fine fabric. The distinctive ports being the sprinkler and the pouted channel. The age was marked by the construction of the bricks walls, the use of the burnet bricks for the flooring and the tiles for the both floating and the flooring was the evident. Trade and agriculture. The Saka Kusana phase saw the establishment of the direct contact between India and Central Asia, which helped to develop trade between the two. India imported the good deal of the gold from the Atline mountain and the Central Asia. Gold also may have been received India through the trade with the Roman Empire. The Silk Route, which started from China, crossed through the empire in Central Asia and Afghanistan to Iran. Western Asia was controlled by the Kusans. This route was the source of the great income to the Kusan, and they built a large prosperous empire because of the tolls lived from these traders. Although the Indo-Greeks introduced the gold coin in India, the Kusana were the first ruler in India to issue gold coins on the large scale. The Kusanas also promote the agriculture. The archaeological trace the irrigation facilities have been discovered in the part of the Afghanistan, Pakistan, Western Central Asia. Third, trade and agriculture. The Sakas and the Kusan introduced better cavalry and popularized the use of the riding horses on a large scale. The use of the reins and saddles and the two strippers made on the rope was the common in this phase. Rope. They also introduced the tunic, turban, trousers, heavy long coat, and and long boots, which the facilitated bacteria in war. Polity. The Sakas Kusana promulgated the idea of the divine origin of kingship. The Kusana kings were called some of the god. The Kusanas introduced the stamp system of the government, whereas the empire was divided into the numerous satrapies, and which the satrapy was placed under the rule of the satraps. The Indo-Greeks introduced the practice of the military governorship, wherein they appointed their governors called the strategy. Military governors were the necessary to the maintain the power of the foreign ruler over the conquered the people. Fifth, Indian society. The Sakas and the Kusana adopted new element to Indian culture and enshrined it the immensely. They settled in India for the good and the completely identified themselves with its culture. Since they did not have their own script, language, and religion, they adopt this element of cultural from India. They become the completely Indianized in course of the time. As most of them come from the conqueror, they were absorbed in Indian society as a warrior class Kshatriyas. The lawgivers Manu stated that the Sakas and the Parthians were the Kshatriyas who had fallen from their in status and were thus considered as the second class Kshatriyas. In no other period of the ancient history were the foreigners assimilated into Indian society such a large scale as they were the also post-Mauryan period. 6. Religion. Some of the foreigner rulers converted into the Vaishnavism, worshipped and the Vishnu, the god of the protection and the pre-invasion. The Greek ambassador and Heliodorus set up the pillar of the horse and Vishnu never the Vidisha in the Madhya Pradesh. The few other adopted Buddhism, as in the case of the Greek ruler Menander, who became a Buddhist. The Kusana ruler worshipped the both Shiva and Buddhas as the evident from the image of these two gods on the Kusana coins. The Buddhism in its the original form of the two uh, puritanical and the experts for the foreigners. They did not appreciate the philosophical doctrines of the Buddhism emphasized by the existing Buddhist schools. So there was a developed a new form of Buddhism called a Mahayana or the Greek wheels, in which the image of the Buddha the began to the worship the Kanishka was the great patrons of the Mahayana from the Buddhism who not only the organized fourth Buddhist council at the Srinagar but also set up the many establishments perpetuate the money of the Buddha. His sect opened and the doors for the all section of the people who did not follow the sect newly found come to be known as the followers of the Himalayan sect of the small will. 7. Art and literature. The construction of the stupas and development of the regional school of sculpture under two main features concerning art and architecture of this period. A stupa is a large semi-spherical dome having the central chamber which relies on the Buddha on. The some Buddhist monks are kept in the small cassette. This base is surrounded by the path for the clockwise. The circumambulation pardakshina enclosed by the wooden railing which were the later made in stone. The three the main stupa which the period were the Bharhut date on to the middle of the 2nd century. Its railing are the made the red stone. The Sanchi. Three big stupa were the constructed as Sanchi. The biggest one was the originally made by Asoka, which was the enlarged twice the size of the 2nd century. The Amravati and Naga Arjun Konda, Andhra Pradesh. School of Sculpture. The Central Asia rule became the enthusiastic pattern of the Indian art and culture. The showed great zeal in the establishing new school of art. The Kusana Empire brought together Monsoon and the other artisan trained the different school of the countries. Indian craftsmen come into the contact with the Greeks and the Romans, especially in the northwestern frontier of India in Gandhara. The three main the school of sculpture art development in this period were the Gandhara School of Art, Mathura School of Art and Amravati School of Art. Gandhara School, Mathura School. Third one is Amravati School. Basis Basis Gandhar School, Mathura School, Amravati School. External influence Gandhari School. Heavy influence of the Greek or the Hellenistic sculpture, also it is also known as the Indo-Greek art. The Mathura school, it was developed indigenously and not influenced by the external culture. Amravati school, it was developed indigenously and not influenced by the external cultures. The ingredient used Gandhari school. Early Gandhari school used blues grey sandstone, while the later period saw the use of the mud and the stucco. Mathura school. The sculpture of the Mathura school were made using the spotted red sandstone. Amravati school. The sculptures of the Amravati school were made using white marble. The religious influence Gandhar school mainly Buddhist imagery influenced by the Greco-Roman pan- pantheon. The Mathura school in religious influence में influenced all three religions of the time. Example Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and Buddhism. Amravati school mainly Buddhist influence. Patronage. The patronized by the Kusana ruler. Uh, um, mm, Patronized by the Kusana ruler and patronized by the Satavahana rulers. Gandhar school, Mathura school and Amravati school. Area of development. Gandhar school developed in the northwest frontier in modern day area of the Kandhar. Mathura school developed in the around the Mathura, Sok and the Kankalithiya, and Kankalithiya was the famous for the Jain sculpture. Amravati school developed in the Krishna Godavari lower valley in the around the Amravati and the uh, Naga Arjun Konda. The feature of the Buddha and sculpture Amra, Gandhar school. The Buddha is also shown in the spiritual state with heavy heavy hair. He wears the favor ornaments and the seated in the position of the position of a yogi. The eyes are the half closed as in meditation. A protuberance is the shown on the and the head signifying the osmosis of the Buddha. Mathura school. Buddha is shown in the de- delighted mood with a smiling face. The body is the muscular, wearing the tight dress. The face and the head are the seven. Buddha is seated in the Padmasan with the different mudras, and his face is reflected grace. A similar protuberance sorry, shown on the head. Since the sculptures are the generally part of a narrative art and there is a less emphasis on the individual feature of the Buddha, the sculptures generally depicts the life story of the Buddha and the Jataka tells example previous lives of the Buddha in the both human and animal forms. These are examples. 8. Science and technology. Indian astronomy and the astrology profited from the contract with the Greeks. Age of Satavahanas. A. Political history. In the Deccan and in central India, the Satavahanas succeeded the Maurya, although after a gap of about 100 years, the Satavahanas are considered to be identical with the Andhra, who were the mentioned in the Puranas. The Puranas speak only on the Andhra rules and not the Satavahanas rule. The earliest inscription of the Satavahanas belong to the first century BC when they are defeated the Kanwas and established their power in the pairs of the central India, the gradually to extend their the power over the Karnataka and Andhra. The Gautamiputra Satkarni AD 106 to 130 called himself the only Brahmana. He defeated the Sakas and destroyed many Kshatriyas ruler. The king and the coins and inscription of the Gautamiputra's immediate successor of the वशिष्ठ वशिष्ठिपुत्रा पुलमायानी एडी 130 to 154 are found in Andhra. He set up the capital of the Pathan on the Godavari in Aurangabad district. The Rudra Daman first 130 to 115 AD 50 AD the Saka ruler the Kathewar defeated the Satohanas twice, but did not destroy them on account of the matrimonial relation. Yajna Sri the Satkarni recorded North Konkan and the Malwa from the Saka's ruler. He was a lover of the trade and the navigation. His coins have been found not only in Andhra but also the Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat. His love for the navigation and the overseas trade is shown by the representation of the ship and his coin. Second, aspects of the matrimonial culture. The matrimonial culture of the Deccan under Satohanas were they are the function of the local element and northern and ingredient. The megalithic builders of the Deccan were fairly acquainted with their use of the iron and agriculture. At side the Kari, Karimang Karimnagar district, even the blacksmith shop has been discovered. The Satavahanas may have exploited the iron working as early as the megalithic phase have been found. The evidence of the ancient gold working has been found in the Kolar field in the pre-Christian century and later. The Satohanas may have been used the gold as the billions, for they did not issue gold coin as the Kusana did. They issued the mostly coins of the lead. They also issued point in copper and bronze money. In the foreign accounts, the Andhra is the considered to be the famous for the cotton product. A good portion of the Deccan developed a very advanced rural economy. According to the Pilini, the Andhra kingdom maintained and the army 1 lakh infantry, 2,000 cavalry, and the 1,000 elephant. This uh, presupposes a large rural population and apparently the present the produce the enough to support this military strength. Pinai information us the Andhra country in the eastern Deccan include 30 walled towns besides the numerous villages, increasing the trade and indicate the numerous Roman and Satavahanas coin. Third, social organization. The Satavahanas originally seem to have been tribes of the Deccan, but they have been Brahmanized, and their most famous king Gautami Putra Satkarni comes to have established the fourfold Varna system which had the fallen into the disorder. He boasted that the put and the end of the intermixture between the people of the different social order. The Satavahanas were also the first ruler to make land grants, and the Brahman, although have the more intense of the grants being made the Buddhist monks. The Satavahanas ruler called themselves Brahmans, and Gautami Putra boast that they was the true Brahmana. Encouraging craft commerce in the period brought many merchants and the artisans are the forefronts. Both artisan and merchants made the generous donation to the Buddhist cause. Among the artisans, the uh, Gandhikas or the performers and the representatively mentioned as the donors. At the later stage, the terms Gandhika becomes as a general as the connote all the kinds of this spoke keepers, and the modern title Gandhi is the derived from this ancient term. The Satavahanas saw the traces of the matrimonial social structure. It was the customary for the king to be named after his mother. Such name as the Gautami Putra Vasisthi Putra indicate that there the society mother enjoyed a great deal of the importance. The Satavahanas retained some of the administrative unit found in the Ashoka times in their district was called the Andhra as it was known as the time of the Ashoka. Their officials were known as the Amatya and Mahamatras. There were the certain military and the feudal traits and the administrative of Satavahanas. The administration in the rural area was placed in the hands of the Golmika, who was head of the military regiment consisting of the 9 chariots, 9 elephants, 25 horse, and 45-foot soldier. The military character of the Satavahanas ruler also evident from the common use of the such term as the Kataka and Skandravars is in there the inscription. There were military camps of the settlement which the serve as the administrative centers so long as the king was there. The Satavahanas started to the practice of the granting tax-free village and Brahmins and Buddhism monks. These areas therefore become the small independent island with the Satavahanas kingdom. The Satavahana kingdom had the three grants of the feudatories. These and the highest grade was the formed by the king who was called Raja and who had the right to the strike coins. The second grants was the formed by the Mahabhoja and the third grade by the Senapati, and it seemed that these are the feudatories and the hand beneficiary enjoy the some authority in their respective localities for religion. The Satavahana ruler were the Brahmins and they represented the march of the triumph, triumphant Brahminism, and the kings and the queens performed the Vedic sacrifices. They also worshipped a large number of the Vaishnava gods. And however, the Satavahanas ruler promoted Buddhism by the granting land to monks in their kingdom, and the Mahayana forms of Buddhism commanded considered the following, especially in the artisan class: the Naga Arjun Konda and the Amravati in the Andhra Pradesh became the important seats of the Buddhist culture under the Satavahana, and more so under their the successor and the uh, Chaukus is Shakus. The Buddhism and flourished in the Nasik and Junar area in the western Deccan in Maharashtra, where it is seemed to have been supported by the traders. The fifth, agriculture. In the Satohanas phase, many chaitya, sacred shrines, and the monasteries were cut out the solid rock in the northwestern Deccan Maharashtra with a great skill and the patience. The two common religious constructions were the Buddhist temple, which was called the Chaitya, and the monasteries, which also called the Vihara. The Chaitya was the large hall with the number of columns, and the Vihara consisted of the central hall. The most famous Chaitya is Chaitya of the Karel in the western Deccan. The Vihara or the monasteries were the excavated near the Chaitya are the residence of the monks in the rainy season. Rock cut architecture is also to be found in the Andhra in Krishna Godavari region, but the region is really famous for the independent Buddhist structure, mostly in the form of stupa. The most famous of them the Amaravati and Naga Arjun Konda. The stupa was the large around the structure erected over some re- relics of the Buddhas. The Amaravati stupa began in about the 200 BC, but was the completely reconstructed in the second half of a second century AD. Six language. The official language of the Satavahanas was the Prakrit. All the inscriptions were composed in this language and written in the Brahmin script, as was the case in the Asoka times. Some Satavahanas king may have the composed Prakrit text called the Ghat Ghathaspastasti is attributed to the Satavahanas king called the Hala. History of the Deep South. The megalithic background. The megalithic graves were enshrined by the big pieces of stone. They also contain the pottery and the iron object buried with the corpses. They were found in the uploaded region peninsula with the concentration eastern Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. state formation and the rise of the civilization. The megalithic people started to the reclaim of the fertile de- deltic land. The route in the south is the called as the Dakshina Pantha, which was become the economically important. Megasthenes knew about the Pandyas, while the Asoka inscription mentioned about the Chola Pandyas and the Kerala Putra and Satya Putras. The flourishing trade with the Roman Empire led to formation of these three states, Chera, Cholas, and Pandyas. The Sangam period. The Sangam period is a period in the history of the ancient Tamil Nadu, spanning from 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD. It is named after the famous Sangam academics of the poet and scholars centered in the city of Madurai. Chola Empire, Chera Empire, Pandyas Empire. Kingdom, capital, port, emblem, famous ruler. Chera, capital, Vanzi, modern Kerala, port, the Mujuri Tondi, emblem, bow, and the Sengutuan, famous ruler. Chola, capital, tha Udaipur, Puhar, port, the Kaveri Pattanam, Puhar. They had and the efficient navy, emblem tiger, and a Karikalam, famous ruler. Pandyas, capital Madurai, port the Karai for the pearl fishing, emblem fish. Nendun Chelian, Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas, Chera, and they had the Palmaya flowers as their the grand land. The Pugalur inscription mention the three generations of the Cheras. Senagutra introduced the Patani cult of the worship of the Kenangi as the ideal wife. Cholas, the Karikalam built the Kalani check dam against the river Kaveri. Pandyas, Madurai, Madurai Kakanji, written by the Mangudi Maruthanar, description of the socio-economic condition of the Pandyas. Invasion by the Kalvras led to their the decline. This kingdom had a profitable trade with the Roman Empire. They produced the paper, ivory, pearls, and the precious stone, muslin, silk, cotton, etc., which led to the prosperity in their region. Rise of social classes. Inadi, captain of the army. Velas, rich peasant. Arasar, ruling class. Kadasyar, the lower class. The Periyars, agriculture laborers. And the four castes mentioned in the Falkir, Talkepiam, Jalkepiam, Arasar, ruling class, Anthanar, Brahmins, Vanigar, people involved in the trade and commerce, Vellar, labor, Sangam administration, the Avai, the imperial court, the Kadi Maram, the tutorial tree and of the every ruler, Panchama Hasba, the Amachar minister, Senapati Thar army chief, Ottar spy, the Thodar Inavi, and the Purohit priest. Kingdoms and division. Mandalam slash Nadu and is equal to province. Ur means town. Perur means big village. Sitrur means a small village. Names are different, difficult. Five-fold division of land. Land, types of land, chief deity and the chief occupation. Kurunji, hilly tract and chief deities में Murugan, hunting and the honey collection. Mullai, pastoral. Mayon, cattle rearing and the dealing with the dry product. Marudham, agricultural. Indra, agricultural. The Naidhal, coastal. Varuna, the fishing and the salt manufacturing. The Palai, desert. Kor- Koravi, the robbery. Sangam, Sangam place chairman surviving tax. First then Madurai chairman था अगस्त्यार, नील नहीं मिला है कुछ एविडेंस. सेकंड में कपादापुरम अगस्त्यार एंड द तोलकापियार, द सर्वाइविंग टेक्स्ट तोलकापियारम. थर्ड में मदुरई था फाउंडर मुदाथी रूमन एंड द नायर. द इतुरिगोई पतावी पतातू पतातू 10 आइडियोलिस्ट. Tamil language and Sangam literature. Narrative. Ithogai and Patatu which are called the Melkana Kumam. The 8 major work they were the divided into the Angam love and Pura matlab valor. The did active is the good pronunciation. Pathi ne kill Kandaku. 8 minor works. They deal with the ethics and morals. The Tirkukural written by the Tirkukuluvarar is the treatise the carving various aspects of the life. The Tolki PM by the Tolkapiyar is the earliest and the Tamil literature. It is work on the Tamil grammar, but also provides the information on the political social condition of the Sangam period. Epics. Silpadhikaram by the Elongo Edilga, the Mani Meghalai and the Sithlagi Santhar, Valapathi, the Kundala Gesi, the Sivga Senthamani.